Assalamu alaikum everyone. Welcome to this series of IGCSE economics where we cover the complete syllabus of IGCSE economics from the scratch. So our first video is about discussing about what economics really is and what you should expect from this as a course. So when we talk about economics, like all other sciences, economics is also a science. Economics is a social science where we study how different individuals, groups, societies, and the government makes decisions about the allocation of resources to satisfy their needs and wants. So what this basically means is that in economics we study about resource allocation and how different people satisfy their needs and wants, and how allocation of resources happen among the society. We basically move on to find out different processes and how different people make choices, and through what deductive processes or mathematical logic they act in a way that they usually do. So when we talk about economics, we need to understand who economic agents are, right? So economic agents are different people. So these are different people or individuals who make decisions about the production and consumption of the resources. Further, these economic agents decide how the resources are distributed among the society. So that is what who economic agents are. They basically make decisions about how consumption happens among the society, what is produced in the society, and who gets what when it is produced, right? So how the goods and services that are produced in a society, how do those goods and services get distributed among the society? These economic agents decide that. When we talk about economics, we have four primary economic agents that we need to understand. So firstly, we talk about households. Households include all those individuals, groups, and people who live together, consume goods and services, and supply labor. So households की जब भी हम बात करेंगे, this they would include people as consumers. Households are the owners of factors of production, and they supply the factors of production to the firms who in fact use those factors of production to make goods and services to provide to the households. So essentially households are consumers, households are labor as well, and households are the owners of factors of production. The second major economic agent that we are going to be discussing about today is firms. Firms are businesses or enterprises that produce goods and services to sell and make a profit. अब firms जो होंगी, firms are basically classified as all those businesses who produce goods and services. So firms in fact take factors of production from households. They use those factors of production, and by using those factors of production, they produce some goods and services, and then they sell those goods and services to the consumers in the market. And their primary objective when they're doing so is to maximize the profit that they're making. Moving on, the next major economic agent that we're discussing today is the government. Now, the government is what we call the public sector. And what the government does is government sets policies, provide public goods, collects taxes, and regulates the economic activity. We'll discuss about the role of the government in an economy in the later chapters as well, and we'll talk about how the government intervenes in the market and what's the role of the government in an economy, and how the government puts different policies in place in order to achieve certain objectives. And lastly, the final economic agent that we'll talk about are financial institutions. Now, what are financial institutions? Financial institutions are basically entities like banks and investment companies who basically facilitate in transfer of funds, lending वगैरह हो गई, borrowing होगी. So financial institutions are basically entities like the bank uh, and investment companies that facilitate borrowers and savers to carry out the transactions. So for example, we all know that in a bank we can borrow money from that, we can open our savings account in banks, right? So financial institutions are all those entities who facilitate borrowers and lenders to meet and transact with each other. So that is the role of financial institutions. We'll study more about financial institutions when we talk about the chapter that is money and banking. So we'll talk about the role of financial institutions in detail when we move to those chapters. So before moving on, the first thing that comes in economics is that you need to understand that the study of economics start with the basic economic problem. And what the basic economic problem is, it's called scarcity. So the basic economic problem is known as scarcity. Now, scarcity arises due to two factors. Number one is that there are limited resources and there are unlimited wants of the people. So that means ये जो limited resources होती हैं, these are insufficient to meet the unlimited wants and needs of the people. And as old wants get satisfied, new wants emerge. So that means that the basic economic problem can never be solved in the society. And the scarcity, so the scarcity forces economic agents to make decisions on how to best allocate the resources effectively. So that is how scarcity impacts different agents. It forces the economic agents to make choices, and that eventually leads to opportunity cost. That a concept that we will study inshallah in the later videos. Let's talk about how scarcity affects different economic agents that we just talked about. So if we talk about households, so households का मतलब क्या है? Households, as we discussed, are consumers and suppliers of factors of production. So we know that households have to have something in limited. So households have limited incomes, right? And the decision that they're basically making is about spending that income on different goods and services. Obviously, if they have limited incomes, they cannot buy everything out there in the market. They cannot purchase everything in the market to satisfy their needs and wants. Obviously, if a person has limited income, they would have to choose between different alternate courses. Now, what will happen is, for example, if I as a consumer go out in the market and I want to buy, let's say, either a PlayStation 5, or I can use that money to pay off my college. So that basically means is that I have a certain amount of income and I cannot do both at the same time. I have to choose between whether I want to do satisfy one want or the other, and and obviously either one of them, if I choose one of the options that I have, the other one becomes my opportunity cost. I won't be able to fulfill or benefit from what I could have done from that income by spending it on another area. So that is how households basically have to face opportunity cost and how scarcity impacts households. If we talk about firms, we basically see that firms encounter, because firms have something in limited, that is limited profits. So firms can some firms have to basically choose about choosing what to produce, or they have another choice, that is, okay, would they want to reinvest that profit back into the business, or they want that profit to get to the shareholders. So for example, they would face a choice due to scarcity, is that they can either distribute the profits to shareholders or reinvest back. So they cannot do both at the same time. And another economic agent, if we talk about the government, we'll talk about conflicts in policies as well. For example, what the government has in limited is government has a limited budget. Obviously, government earns from taxing different economic agents, and the government raises its revenue from taxes. So if the government is has limited tax revenues, so the government cannot spend on everything that they want to. So that means they can either spend more on healthcare or education. If they spend a certain amount on, let's suppose, the healthcare sector, they won't be able to spend that same amount on the education sector. So that becomes their opportunity cost. We'll discuss about the concept of opportunity cost in the later videos. But I hope that the concept of what economics is, who economic agents are, and how and what scarcity is, and how scarcity impacts different economic agents is clear.